everyone. Welcome to The Download, where we bring you discussion and analysis from a Catholic perspective. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. I'm Bradley Eli, here with my two co-hosts, Trey Brock and Christine Niles. A bipartisan group of attorneys general filed a lawsuit Tuesday accusing social media giant Meta of directly causing harm to the mental well-being of minors. Meta is the company behind both Facebook and Instagram. The lawsuit, coming from a coalition of 33 AGs, claims algorithms and other features on the platforms were designed to make social media more addictive, particularly for underage users. New York Attorney General Letitia James is leading the joint lawsuit. She stated, quote, Meta has profited from children's pain by intentionally designing its platforms with manipulative features that make children addicted to their platforms while lowering their self-esteem. Close quote. So that's in one sense, I really understand where they would be going with that. Of course, in the world of social media, in the world of these giants, they put hundreds, thousands, millions of hours in studying people's psychology. I mean, every advertisement does that on TV. Every corporate entity would, they do that. That's just what they do. They want to be the most appealing, the most attractive. And in some cases here, are they going too far? Are they actually just programming kids? They just have cracked the genome, I don't know.
Well, Meta, just to clarify for those out there, they own both Facebook and Instagram. And Facebook caters generally to an older audience. People say boomers. I'm not a boomer, but I'm on Facebook. I've been on Facebook for a long time. But Instagram is very, very popular among the young crowd. Instagram, TikTok, that's kind of where they kind of put their stuff. But according to this lawsuit, and what's interesting about this lawsuit is that it's many attorneys general, and it's bipartisan. So it's people from the left and the right, and it represents a significant challenge to Meta. I mean, they're all concerned about how addictive these platforms are, and the fact that they're accusing not just Facebook and Instagram of making it deliberately addictive. So, for instance, from this CNBC report, it says Meta designed its Facebook and Instagram products to keep young users on them for longer and repeatedly coming back, according to the attorneys general. Meta did this via the design of its algorithms, copious alerts, notifications, and so-called infinite scroll through platform feeds. The company also includes features that the AGs allege negatively impact teens' mental health through social comparison or promoting body dysmorphia, such as likes or photo filters. And there was a study actually done that showed that the longer that teens were spending on social media, like Facebook and Instagram, the worse their depression got and the worse their self-esteem got. Because what do? Facebook is not real life. It's it's snapshots from life, and people always try to put their best face on Facebook. So it's always like someone smiling or having a great time on vacation or whatever, and with their friends, so they look really happy. And other teens look at that and like, wow, why does that person have such a happy life and I don't? And they compare themselves. So
yeah, and it's you're on those platforms, and all you're doing is you're comparing yourself with others. That's all you're doing the entire time. And to your point about it not being left or right, it was Colorado and California who led the charge with these 33 states that filed the lawsuit. And Meta owns Facebook, Instagram. It also owns WhatsApp and Messenger. I use three of those platforms, so maybe I need to be a little careful. But this is a quote from the lawsuit. It says, Meta has harnessed powerful and unprecedented technologies to entice, engage, and ultimately ensnare youth and teens. And then it goes on. The lawsuit actually says its motive is profit, which is not surprising. They want more people on their platform, so they're going to do whatever it takes to get them on their platform. It doesn't matter if they're how old they are, essentially. So I don't know. This just highlights the obvious problem that our modern age of social media has.
Yeah, the states you guys are talking about, the bipartisan's really there. A lot of the red states, Kansas, flyover states, North Dakota, and Ohio, and all that. But there's Hawaii, Democrat stronghold, Michigan, Minnesota, Rhode Island. Those are really Democrat states, Democrat strongholds there. I really appreciate Meta's response here to the lawsuit. In paraphrasing, it says the law enforcement should have collaborated with us to make our sites safer for kids. So it's kind of throwing it back on the law enforcement, saying, if you wanted to. But I just can't quite get my head around this. I know I shouldn't be backing these media giants, and I don't want to seem like I am, but you always want the best product you can have out there. And I just don't understand if you would be going to them and say, make yourself less attractive. Don't be so engaging. You know, don't have it out there in front of people all the time and all this. And you know, I have solutions we can talk about later in the show about parents. I mean, come on, if it's about kids, where's your parenting? But we can hold off on that for a minute. But the idea that isn't a platform, I really hate to be going, I'm not going to bat for these guys. I think that, you know, it's you know, the mouthpiece of the Satan because of all the stuff that comes out there. But, and it is completely addictive. So, but aren't they going to be presenting themselves in the best way?
But
I mean, popping. I mean, that's marketing, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to talk to marketing and say, hey, stop making our stuff so, you know, marketable?
That's exactly right, and that's why it's not really surprising. Like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever other apps there are out there. The whole point of these is to get people on. So when you
keep you on.
Yeah, and keep you on, and so they're going to feed into what people like. So the problem with Meta, the way that I see it, is that obviously there's no moral standard, and so basically they're looking at what people like and they're saying, okay, whatever that is, we're going to put more of that in front of your face, and that's what keeps you on. That's why when you get on, even on YouTube does it, you're scrolling and they are tailoring your own feed to what you like, and YouTube knows that.
And they just populate what you want.
Well, of course.
Advertising and everything.
Of course, yeah. So if there's like, you know, if there's young men who are on one of these apps and they like looking at like naked girls, it's like, of course they're going to put more of that in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no, you know, there's not really much of a standard, and so it doesn't matter if it's good or if it's bad. If you like looking at a bunch of Catholic content, they're going to throw Catholic content in front of you. So there's obviously no standard.
I mean, my feed just fills up with Trey Brock all the time.
That's right.
Automatically. It's just, you know that.
Yeah.
Everything you say, bam, it's in my inbox.
There are, though, however, more serious concerns beyond just the marketing. So, for instance, the federal suit also accuses Meta of violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act by collecting personal data on users under 13 without parental consent. So that seems like a clear legal violation. They're not allowed to do that. But also, how they tailor their ads towards youth is also problematic. I've noticed this. Is they, you know, they'll actually bring up ads before they play a particular piece of content for antidepressants, and marketing that towards children, because more children now are on drugs than ever before, like medication, therapy. I've seen that, you know, pushing like, and showing really young people, you know, like, yeah, here, this is my online counselor. You should go get a therapist as well. I thought it was really interesting today. My daughter told me she was reading some article about studies on levels of anxiety among youth today. She said that the levels of anxiety that they measured among youth today are the same levels that were measured in insane asylums in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I mean, there's just this general heightened anxiety among children today, which doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, look at the state of the world.
Well, this is a great a forum show to pass on to others, parents specifically, because generally people say, oh, you need to watch what your kids are watching. You're generally talking about like porn or some like graphic violence or something along that line. And here, it's really just the insidiousness of the whole machinery itself and so many other angles that you wouldn't even think about on why to be in charge of what your kids are watching, because they're vulnerable, especially before, you know, they're at younger ages, and not able to even understand that all this is going on around them. But the parents need to understand that very much. But one thing that was disturbing me even more, I'm sure, Christine, you could weigh in on this, the Supreme Court Friday allowed Biden administration officials to continue contact social media, such as Meta, platforms to combat what they call misinformation. To me, that's that collusion which is also tailored to our understanding of reality, of what we can talk about and can't talk about, and everything's fact-checked by the wrong side. And that, to me, that was even more disturbing than this lawsuit. Well, this is actually a good pushback, you know, pushing back on Meta and trying to get get a grip on that. But kind of allowing the Biden administration just to say, hey, you can stiff-arm the social media platforms all you want, or not all you want, but I mean, have a collusion going on there for our and that's for adults and everybody.
Just to clarify, it's temporary. It's a very big case. The Supreme Court is hearing the case, and they said they would expedite the case, meaning that they will produce an opinion by the end of this term, which ends in June. So it's a very big case. Like I said, I'm very glad to see it, because they absolutely need to be sued over this, because, again, this is about government coercing and pressuring Facebook, Twitter, and various other big tech social media platforms to censor accounts, because they didn't agree with what they said about COVID-19 or the lockdown or election fraud or things like that. And so based on this pressure from the government, sending these emails, because all these emails were released, okay? All these emails released, Twitter files, on Elon Musk made sure that they were released. And you can read Department of Homeland Security and various other government officials writing to top people at Twitter and various other places saying, hey, we find this contact really problematic and we would really like it. They wouldn't order them, but they'd be like, we're really concerned about this. Well, what do you do when you have a federal agent breathing down your neck saying, this content from this one account here really bothers us? Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go and delete it or ban the account, and that's exactly what they did. Well, the problem is we have a First Amendment right to free speech in the Constitution, and this is textbook violation of it because it's the federal government going to Twitter and basically using them as their arm to censor the average American. I mean, that's like classic. I believe the Supreme Court is going to rule against the Biden administration. But just to clarify, as this case was moving up the ladder through the district court and then the appeals court, they placed a block on the Biden administration from any further communications with any of these platforms. Like, stop it. You're not allowed to do this. So they placed a block, goes up to the Supreme Court, and a majority of the court, 3 people dissented, a majority of the court said, for now, we're just going to temporarily lift this block so that you can continue to communicate with social media. And people are very upset about that. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be like permanent that way. They said it's just temporary until we release our final opinion. So
why would they, in the temporary, lift that allow the collusion?
Well, they haven't yet ruled on whether or not it's collusion, and Biden, for one, Biden administration requested it. They said, can you please lift this because this is going to cause irreparable harm. We can't communicate about concerns we might have about health or whatever, and you're restricting our ability to communicate necessary things. So they're saying there's no collusion at all. We're just communicating things. And so this majority of the court said, okay, we can do that. Now, Alito, Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas all dissented. They said, we wouldn't have done this. This is what Alito said, Catholic, devout Catholic. At this time in the history of our country, what the court has done, I fear, will be seen by some as giving the government a green light to use heavy-handed tactics to skew the presentation of views on the medium that increasingly dominates the dissemination of news. That is most unfortunate. So.
Yeah, this is at a time when all-time low, it was Gallup poll, I believe, just a few days ago, came out and said all-time low, people are distrusting mainstream media. So what are they doing? They're turning to alternative or social media to get their shared news among the collective brain trust out there, the people. And so it's more important than ever on what are we able to share on social media. So many times you go to share a video, it's like, oh, you can't share that, you can't share this, you can't look at that. When is the ruling supposed to come down? When this?
Well, they said they do it. Usually they're handed down at the end of the term, which is right around June.
So it's all the way till June. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could have World War III over and done with by that time. So it's just more reasons why this whole social media thing is a problem. You need to monitor it because what are you getting out there, in the whole LGBT and especially on the T part for the kids out there. I don't want to go there too much because of YouTube, but the idea that, the message that they're getting there, you can change this and change that and do this and do that, and the problem is these kids are just vulnerable to all this. So forget about graphic violence, forget about the graphic porn. Yes, that is horrendous, but it's also obvious. All this stuff is flying under a lot of the parents' radar, is why they really need to be involved with what their kids are consuming. And their kids aren't sitting in front of the TV, watching Tom Brokaw, or Dan Rather anymore. That stuff is all, people don't even watch mainstream media very much. It's all of this. This is where they're getting all their information, and this is being filtered and twisted, and it's dangerous world out there.
You see all of this. You see all of that manifested in the statistics that the porn statistics. The first age of the age of exposure, the average age of exposure for is 11 or 12 years old for porn.
Terrible.
So to your point, parents are just letting, hey, here, Johnny, here's your phone. You're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and of course they have access to everything. If you have access to the internet, you can get on anything. And so they're just sitting there scrolling, trying to find something to do, not doing anything with their day. And we know too, if you look at the statistics and you look at how these platforms tailor their content, they're not just kind of passively putting this, they're going out of their way to put specific content in front of specific people. And so when a kid who's 11 or 12 years old is just scrolling on Google or whatever it is, these porn companies, and not just porn companies, all these social media companies, they are targeting them. They want their content in front of them. And so, yeah, you can't just innocently scroll the web, and you're 11, 12 years old, your conscience isn't formed at all. So you're obviously gonna, you catch on to that, and that's where the addiction kind of pops in. But that is a mind-blowing statistic. 11 or 12 years old, that's the average age of first exposure for pornography.
And what that does to a person's ability to have a natural relationship and how they view the other person and all this, it's all...
At the youngest age, 11 or 12 years old, before many kids hit puberty, especially, boys hit puberty, they are seeing women as objects, and that's what the girls that get into this. You're seeing a human being as an object, and then that leads to, of course, that's going to lead to a million other things, a million other sins of the flesh.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen it on Twitter too. There are times that, and the thing is, and parents should be aware of this for their own children, is you can go in and block any of these social media platforms from tailoring their ads or content to you. Because there are cookies and things like that. You can actually go in and you can disable that. So I do that so that they cannot tailor their ads to me. So they do just send random ads. But so like on Twitter, I've received tweets just in my feed, scrolling through my feed, where it's outright hardcore porn, and I immediately block it. But I'm like, why is this showing up in my feed? It's not because I'm looking at the stuff. It's just, literally, it just shows up. But Twitter, social media is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, I am so grateful for a platform like Twitter, which really is, to me, the #1 news source today. Yeah, I don't turn to like legacy media like CNN or Fox News. It's like Fox News, quite frankly, it's usually a day behind Twitter. I mean, all the breaking news happens on Twitter. So if that's where you want to see breaking news, that's where you go. So and Twitter is wildly successful in the sense that it appeals to all the demographics. Whereas like Instagram is mostly the young crowd, TikTok's the young crowd, Facebook's an older crowd, but Twitter, it appeals to everybody, young and old, and everyone in between. Everybody's on it. Journalists are on it. Everybody's on it. But thank God that Elon Musk took over, because before him, we know that there was all sorts of censorship. Just one of the most egregious, of course, is the Hunter Biden laptop. And the Twitter files revealed that the FBI pressured Twitter to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. And as we know, because Twitter became kind of notorious for this, the New York Post was the first to break that story. Twitter comes out, they claim that it was based on hacked materials. And so they suspended New York Post, and they said, we will allow you back on if you delete your post. Good for New York Post. They stuck to their guns. They had integrity, and they said, we're not deleting anything because this is a true story, and you're just censoring us on behalf of the Biden administration, because this happened right before the election. And it turns out, like, all the emails from the Twitter files that were released completely proved all this. And what's really interesting is that they released internal emails between employees at Twitter. They themselves were shocked. They were like, I can't use the word, but they were like, that's effed, when they found out that the highest level Twitter people had actually suspended that story in the New York Post. And all of this was being done actually behind the CEO's back, Jack Dorsey. He didn't even know what was happening. It was the lawyer, Vijaya Gadde. I don't know if you remember her, but she became very notorious. She was like the first person that Elon Musk fired as soon as he took over. He's like, hey, you're out. She's the same one who banned Trump. Horrible decisions. But again, it shows the FBI actually contacted Twitter and pressured them to remove that story. It's
imagine having the power to just like that. So it was one. What was her name?
It was a lawyer, Vijaya Gadde.
So she's just looking at Trump's Twitter, and she's just like, "Yep, I'm just gonna."
I know.
That's
absolute power.
That's wild.
So you have the 101 reasons here about, you have the porn, you have the controlled censorship, you have collusion with the government, and then just this whole addictive thing where we started off with, this whole addictive development about how they know exactly how to hook someone, keep them on there. And that's so there's 101 reasons why you don't want to have your little kid have a smartphone if it's possible. They need to communicate. You need to have a phone. There's things called flip phone. Doesn't have any of that going on. Would a flip phone be or just one of those track phones or something that you can have out there?
That was my first phone. Flip phone.
Yeah, you can. I had one too, an LG, whatever. And the thing is, that allows you to communicate. You don't necessarily need the smartphone. I do know that from a particular person who works in the daycare industry, I won't reveal the person, but someone whom I'm actually quite close to, and there are kids that are coming and they have the smartphone, and they're like 4 years old.
Oh, shoot. And
they have a TV in their room going all night long, and you wonder why they're tired during the day. And it's like, where are the parents? And they're just completely oblivious to all this stuff. Here's your phone, and there's your TV. And then you go over to some people's houses, and they have little kids over there or whatever. TV's going, tablets are going, all this noise in the house. We talked about in another show before about the noise and all this distraction. It's just the world, and you just become numb to it all, and you're just swimming in this noise and distractions all the time. And there's no time for just natural, interaction between people, which was just amazing to me. So even from that, but the idea that if you have a smartphone and have access to the internet or a computer, tablets, and also a TV, it's hard for a kid to shut down at nighttime. 2 in the morning, this thing clicks on and starts beeping, and next thing you know, they're off swimming in. And not only that, we don't even talk about the people that are communicating with them, all these online chat stuff, and they're talking with people who are completely nefarious out there, and I mean that in a specific way, who are there, and maybe not even just looking to attack, but just to pervert and to engage and to, bring people down. So I don't know what angle you need to understand this at, but it's not good to have, even adults have to worry about all these things. It's not good for young people just to have free reign to the internet and the whole world to have free reign to them at 24 hours a day.
It's so completely irresponsible. I mean, it's so harmful to a child just to allow the TV on constantly all the time and all that noise. And it stunts their intellectual growth.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you're watching something, it's passive. It's passive. You're just receiving the imagery as opposed to reading, which is active. You're actively reading, and your brain is actively working. It's like imagining the scenes on its own. So when you're receiving these images constantly, you're not working your brain in any way. So, like I said, it's so harmful for children for those reasons, but also spiritually. It's okay to have silence, and it's okay to let your children get bored, because you know what? Boredom is what spurs on creativity. When a child gets bored, he's like, okay, well, let's build a fort, or let's go build this, or let's go play this game, this imaginary game. They start thinking, they start getting creative from their boredom. And so I've read articles where like, let your children get bored. They don't have to be constantly, occupied with, this toy and this screen and this video. Let them get bored, because that's how they become creative.
At that very point right there, they get bored. It trains them to be bored. It trains them to be boring.
Right.
They have this constant impulse, so they're constantly pandered to emotionally and intellectually, and someone's just spoon feeding them reality so they don't have to think or interact or do anything. So not only do they not have to interact with another human being, but they don't have to interact with reality. It's just being there and just mesmerized. It's like being hooked up to the Matrix, plugged in that way. And it generates a person who doesn't want to disengage. They're just in video games all the time and movies all the time and internet all the time and this false world that they can't just go outside and appreciate reality. Go for a walk, play a game, talk to somebody, and it really is atrophying them on so many different levels today.
It doesn't allow you to be creative either. I mean, that's what boredom does, is it forces you to figure out something to do, and sometimes and that's just a human process. When you're sitting there on your phone the whole time, it's already there, like you were saying. It's passive. You're just receiving everything, and you're just kind of it just kind of dulls your mind a little bit. When I used to get bored when I was younger, and thankfully when I was elementary and middle school, I forget when the iPhone came out and when people actually started getting those things. But when I was in elementary school, nobody had smartphones or anything. So when you would get bored, you just go outside and you make up a game. You create something to do. You find something to do rather than just get your phone out. And nowadays, everybody has including guys my age, everybody, when you don't know what to do, you just grab your phone. It's right there. And so I think that's one of the worst, because being creative in building something, that's one of the most human things you can do, because that's what God is. God creates by his very nature. He creates. So one of the things that human beings do to reflect that image of God in them is to create, is to build. And if you're not doing that, it's a very dehumanizing process.
Yeah, we have our son has is allowed to watch a video, and it's generally some animated thing, once for half an hour every other day. So for 30 minutes every other day, he gets to watch, he gets a tablet and watches, I don't know, what is it, with the little dogs on there, Paw Patrol or something like that, And that's a controlled thing. You're there, it's in the middle of the, living room or whatever, and he really likes to do that. So that's his 30 minutes every other day. But a lot of times, we were experiencing, if you're having a half hour a day, after that, there's just this boredom kind of like, I was mesmerized, and you can just see how the person just kind of let down now and not engaged with reality and the surroundings and going out and talking and everything. So that's why we were like, okay, we're not just going to cut it out altogether, but the idea that you're really limited, just 30 minutes. Today when people are watching TV, they did studies on this, and people are watching like 2 hours of TV a day. 2 or 3 a day. Talk about how many years of your life will you have spent watching TV, and now, my goodness, social media and stuff like that. How long have you had that on all day, just communicating, when you didn't really have to? It's always good to check the news, be aware of what's going on in the world and stuff like that. But does that take you, 7 hours today to do that? And what did you do with your life for those 7 hours? Was there prayer involved? Was there any, letter writing to somebody? Did you go visit anybody? Did you go help somebody out in some way whatsoever? Or do anything good for God or country or fellow man or family or anything? Yeah,
it really comes down to self-control too. For all the same reasons that you state. We're all adults and we have free access to the internet, and at the end of the day, it just comes down to, I need to impose some self-discipline here. Maybe not spend so many hours, prioritize my family, prioritize my relationships and things like that, prioritize going outside and getting some physical exercise versus just sitting in front of the screen scrolling through this, endlessly. You've got to inculcate that in your children if you have children. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the maturity, you got to bring up the moderation idea, the self-mastery. What's your reason for being in life? To become a saint someday. This is just junk food for the brain, for the soul, at best, if not poison. You're not making that transition through this, pilgrimage of the time that you have in this lifetime. That's the purpose of social media. Social media is not inherently evil. It has a purpose. It should be opening your mind up to reality. It should be sparking real conversations, helping people to ponder truth. And that's the purpose of it. And so anything that deviates away from that, those are the things, that's what social media companies, and like we were talking about earlier, they're just driven based solely off of what people like rather than having an objective standard. And that's why they put this crap in front of people. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. There's a standard there, and these social media companies, you have to have a standard. You have to have an actual identity. You can't be driven based off of what people like, just these comments, or like you were talking about, the people who have power over you are saying you can't do this, you can't do that. If you have a core identity, you're not going to be moved at all by any of that stuff. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Download. Now please join us as we finish in prayer, begging Our Lady's intercession for our nation and our church. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae, vita dulcedo et spes nostra salve. A te clamamus exules filii Hebe. A te suspiramus gementes et flentes, in hac lacrimarum vale. Ea ergo advocata nostra, illos tuos misericordes oculos, ad nos converte, et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Virgo Maria. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you again for joining us for The Download. We premiere a new episode like this every weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. From all of us here at Church Militant, God bless you.